Captain June stood on the bridge of the Harmony's Promise, watching the stars drift past the viewport. His ship was one of humanity's diplomatic vessels, designed to look peaceful and welcoming. The smooth white hull carried no visible weapons. The crew wore simple uniforms without any military insignia. Everything about the ship screamed harmless traders and diplomats, but June knew the truth. Hidden beneath the cargo bays were weapon systems that could crack a moon in half. The peaceful-looking crew members were all trained soldiers. Even the ship's AI had been programmed with thousands of combat scenarios. Humanity had spent 87 years playing a very careful game with the galaxy. On the main screen, Ambassador Tay appeared from the communications room. She looked tired. The negotiations with the Valtesh Empire had been going badly for weeks now. The Valtesh were huge creatures standing nearly 3 meters tall, with thick armored skin and 4 powerful arms. They came from a world where gravity was twice as strong as Earth's. They thought this made them superior to everyone else in the galaxy. "The Valtesh are refusing our latest offer," Tay said quietly. "They're demanding we give them mining rights to the Kepler colonies. If we refuse, they're threatening military action." June nodded slowly. He had expected this. The Valtesh had been pushing humanity for months, testing their limits. They saw humans as weak, small bodies, thin skin, living on a world with gentle gravity. The Valtesh looked at humanity and saw prey, not equals. "What did you tell them?" June asked. "I gave them our final warning," Tay replied. "I told them that humanity wishes for peace, but we will defend our colonies if necessary." Through the screen, June could see the Valtesh commander laughing. The deep rumbling sound echoed across the communication channel before Tay cut it off. The Valtesh didn't believe humans could fight. None of the galaxy did. Back on Earth, Admiral Hanna sat in a room deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. The room didn't officially exist. Neither did the massive military complex surrounding it. On the walls, holographic displays showed the positions of every human ship in the galaxy. There were hundreds of them. The galaxy knew about maybe 30. "The Valtesh have issued their declaration," an aide reported. "They're sending a fleet to Earth, 300 warships." Admiral Hanna smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. "Good, send the signal to all commanders. Operation Apex is now active." Across human space, things began to change. Ships that had been listed as destroyed or decommissioned suddenly powered up. Space stations that were supposedly abandoned lit up with life. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as asteroids came online. Humanity had been preparing for this day since they first met alien life. On the observation deck of a Galactic Union station, scientist Ben watched the stars and thought about humanity's history. He had spent his career studying alien species, learning everything about their biology, their psychology, their weaknesses. The galaxy thought he was just a curious researcher. They didn't know that every piece of information he gathered went straight to Earth's military intelligence. The other species in the galaxy were fascinating. The Valtesh with their strength and pride, the Quellan with their telepathic abilities, the Mordran with their ability to survive in toxic environments. Each species had evolved on their homeworld and then stopped evolving. They had conquered their planets and then became comfortable. Humanity was different. Humans had spent their entire history fighting nature, fighting animals, fighting each other. Earth had produced thousands of different civilizations, and most of them had destroyed each other. The ones that survived were the most adaptable, the most ruthless, the most determined. Ben remembered a conversation he'd had with a Valtesh scientist years ago. The alien had asked him why humans seemed so interested in military history. Why did they preserve information about ancient wars and weapons? The Valtesh scientist couldn't understand it. His own species had erased all memory of their violent past. Ben had smiled and told him it was just academic curiosity. But the real answer was simple. Humanity remembered because humanity knew they would need that knowledge again someday. The Valtesh fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system 3 weeks later. 300 massive warships, each one the size of a small city. Their weapons could turn planets into glass. Their shields could withstand almost any attack the galaxy had ever seen. The Valtesh commanders were confident. This would be easy. "Humans of Earth," the Valtesh High Commander broadcast on all channels. "You have 1 hour to surrender your colonies and accept Valtesh rule. If you refuse, we will take them by force. Your species will learn its place in the galaxy." On Earth, billions of humans watched the broadcast. Some were afraid. Most were angry. But the leadership was calm. They had been expecting this. Captain June received his new orders. The Harmony's promise was no longer needed for diplomacy. The ship's outer hull began to shift and change. Armor plating emerged from hidden compartments. Weapon ports opened along the sides. The peaceful white exterior turned dark and threatening. In less than 10 minutes, the diplomatic vessel had become a warship. All across the solar system, the same transformation was happening. Mining stations revealed themselves to be armed fortresses. Transport ships deployed fighter squadrons. And from the darkness beyond Pluto, the real fleet emerged. Not 30 ships. Not 300. Over 2,000 warships that had been hiding in the cold and dark, waiting for this moment. Admiral Hanna stood in her command center and watched the displays. The Valtesh fleet was moving toward Earth, confident and careless. They had no idea what was coming. She opened a channel to all human forces. This is Admiral Hanna to all commands. For 87 years we have pretended to be weak. We have smiled and traded and acted like prey. Today that ends. Today the galaxy learns the truth about humanity. We are not prey. We have never been prey. Humans are the species that hunted every other predator on Earth to extinction or submission. We are the species that conquered our entire planet. And now, they will learn what happens when you threaten a human world. All ships advance. Show them what real predators look like. The human fleet moved forward, and the Valtesh suddenly realized they had made a terrible mistake. But by then, it was already too late. The Valtesh fleet had been traveling through space for 3 weeks, confident in their superiority. Their sensors showed Earth ahead, a blue and green world that seemed defenseless. A few dozen ships orbited the planet. Some satellites, nothing threatening. The Valtesh High Commander smiled with all 4 of his mouths. This would be over quickly. Prepare to broadcast our final terms, he ordered. The humans will surrender within minutes of seeing our fleet. But then something strange happened. The space around Earth began to change. The satellites weren't satellites at all. They unfolded like metal flowers, revealing weapon platforms that bristled with railguns and missile tubes. The few dozen ships suddenly became hundreds as stealth fields dropped away. And from behind the moon, capital ships emerged that were larger than anything the Valtesh had ever built. Lieutenant Hune sat in the cockpit of her fighter, watching her display light up with targets. She had been waiting in the dark for hours, her ship's systems running cold to avoid detection. Now finally it was time to move. "Ghost Squadron, this is Ghost Leader," she transmitted. "Light them up." Her fighter came alive. The engines roared to full power. Around her, 200 other fighters did the same. They had been hiding in Earth's debris field, disguised as broken satellites and space junk. The Valtesh sensors had looked right past them. The Ghost fighters hit the Valtesh fleet from 6 different angles at once. Their weapons were designed specifically to pierce Valtesh shields. Human scientists had spent decades studying every species in the galaxy, finding weaknesses that no one else knew existed. The Valtesh shields, so strong against energy weapons, did almost nothing against the kinetic penetrators that Hyun's squadron fired. Explosions bloomed across the Valtesh formation. Ships that had seemed invincible seconds ago were suddenly venting atmosphere and spinning out of control. The Valtesh tried to return fire, but the human fighters were too fast, too small, too unpredictable. On the Valtesh flagship, alarms were screaming. The High Commander couldn't understand what was happening. His fleet was dying. In just 6 minutes, they had lost over 100 ships. The humans weren't supposed to fight like this. They were supposed to be weak. "Return fire," he roared. "Destroy them all." But the Valtesh weapons were designed for the kind of warfare the galaxy had known for thousands of years. Big ships shooting at other big ships. Slow, predictable battles where the strongest shields won. They had never faced an enemy that moved like humans did. Colonel Murray watched the battle from her assault ship. While the fighters kept the Valtesh busy, her job was different. Her team specialized in boarding actions. The galaxy had forgotten what it meant to have enemy soldiers inside your ship. They were about to remember. "Breach teams, we're going in," Mirai ordered. "Remember your training." Fast, brutal, no mercy. Her ship slammed into the side of a Valtesh cruiser. Cutting lasers carved through the hull. Mirai and her team poured through the breach, moving through the corridors of the alien ship like water flowing downhill. The Valtesh crew tried to fight back, but they were too slow. Humans had evolved to hunt in 3 dimensions through forests and over rocks. Moving through a spaceship was easy by comparison. The Valtesh were strong, but strength didn't matter when you couldn't catch your enemy. Mirai's team moved faster, thought faster, adapted faster. Within 20 minutes, they had captured the ship's bridge. The Valtesh commander stared at the small human in front of him, unable to believe that his massive ship had fallen to a handful of soldiers. Back on Earth, Dr. Yuri was watching the biological readouts from the battle. Her specialty was understanding how different species responded to stress and fear. The data coming in was fascinating. The Valtesh heart rates were spiking. Their stress hormones were at levels that indicated near panic. They had never experienced real combat before. Their species had been the strongest for so long that they had forgotten what fear felt like. "They're breaking," Yuri reported to Admiral Hana. "Their formation is falling apart. They're starting to retreat." But Hana shook her head. "Don't let them run. I want every ship disabled or destroyed. The galaxy needs to see this. They need to understand what happens when someone attacks humanity." General Day commanded the ground forces, but this battle was in space. Still, he watched and learned. Soon enough, there would be ground battles. The Valtesh had colonies. Their allies had planets. And when the fighting moved to the surface, that's when humanity would really show what they could do. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters. On the ancient plains of Africa, human ancestors had chased animals for hours, sometimes days, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Humans weren't the fastest or the strongest, but they never stopped. They never gave up. And they were very good at learning exactly how to kill what they were hunting. The battle lasted 14 minutes in total. When it was over, the Valtesh fleet was destroyed. Some ships had been blown apart. Others were drifting in space, their crews dead or captured. A few had tried to run, but human ships were faster. They caught the fleeing vessels and disabled them with precise shots to their engines. On the Valtesh homeworld, the Council of Elders watched in horror as the battle footage was broadcast across the galaxy. Humanity had made sure every species could see what had happened. The message was clear. This is what we can do. This is what we have always been able to do. We gave you peace because we chose to, not because we had to. Lieutenant Hyun landed her fighter on the deck of a human carrier. Her hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline. Around her, other pilots were climbing out of their cockpits, some cheering, others quiet and focused. They had won the first battle, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. Colonel Mireille's team returned to their assault ship with prisoners. The captured Valtesh soldiers looked traumatized. They had trained for battle their entire lives, but it had all been theoretical. Simulations and exercises. They had never faced an enemy that actually wanted to kill them. That knew how to kill them. Across the galaxy, the other species watched the battle footage in silence. The Quelon, who could read thoughts, were grateful they had never threatened humanity. The Mordran, who prided themselves on their toughness, realized that toughness meant nothing against tactical superiority. Every species understood that the galaxy had changed. Admiral Hana broadcast a message to all of human space. "Today we revealed our true strength. For nearly a century, we have walked among the stars as diplomats and traitors. We have been patient. We have been kind. But patience and kindness are not weakness. They are choices. The Valtesh made us stop choosing peace. Now they will learn what war really means." On Earth, in homes and cities across the planet, humans celebrated their victory. But in the military command centers, the real work was beginning. Intelligence reports showed that the Valtesh were calling their allies. 3 more species were preparing to join the war against humanity. They thought that together they could overwhelm the humans through sheer numbers. They had no idea how wrong they were. Humanity had prepared for exactly this scenario. In secret bases scattered across human space, fleets were already launching. Each one was heading toward a different enemy homeworld. Humanity wasn't going to wait to be attacked again. They were taking the war to their enemies. Captain June sat in his ready room looking at the reports from the battle. His ship had performed perfectly. Now they had new orders. The Harmony's Promise was being assigned to the Second Fleet, heading toward Valtesh space. Soon the enemy would learn that threatening one human world meant war with all of humanity. The galaxy had lived in peace for 3,000 years, but it hadn't been real peace. It had been the absence of anyone strong enough to challenge the strong. Now real predators had emerged, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Commander Soman sat in a dark room filled with holographic displays. Each display showed a different alien world. She was the head of human intelligence operations, and her job was to know everything about everyone. For 87 years, humans had been gathering information. Now it was time to use it. The Quellan Assembly has voted to support the Valtesh, an aide reported. They're sending a fleet of 500 ships. The Mordrin Collective is also mobilizing. So are the Thelian kingdoms. Somin smiled coldly. Let them come. We've been ready for this since before any of them knew we existed. She pulled up files on each species. The Quellan were telepaths who thought their mental powers gave them an advantage in battle. The Mordrin could survive in environments that would kill most other species. The Thelians were master engineers who built the finest ships in the galaxy. Each species thought they had an edge. None of them understood what they were facing. Begin psychological operations, Somin ordered. I want every species in the galaxy to know what humanity really is. It's time they learned where we came from. Across the galactic network, information began to spread. Videos from Earth's history, images of ancient wars, data about humanity's past. The aliens watched in growing horror as they learned the truth about the species they had welcomed into the galaxy. Earth had been covered in predators. Giant cats with teeth like knives, bears that could crush bones with a single bite, wolves that hunted in packs. And somehow, small, weak humans had survived. More than survived. They had conquered. Every major predator on Earth had either been driven to extinction or had learned to fear humans. The aliens saw videos of human cities, billions of humans living together, cooperating, building. But the historical records showed something else. Those same humans had spent thousands of years killing each other. Humans had fought wars that killed millions. They had invented weapons that could destroy their entire planet. And then they had chosen not to use them. That was what frightened the galaxy most. Humans had restraint. They could kill, but they chose not to. Until now. Captain Gaon commanded the Fifth Fleet, 50 warships heading toward Valtesh space. His orders were simple. Cut off the Valtesh homeworld. No ships in or out. Starve them not of food, but of hope. Sir, we're approaching the Valtesh home system, his tactical officer reported. Detecting defensive platforms. Estimate 300 stations, each armed with heavy weapons. Gaon nodded. Deploy the drones. Let's show them what siege warfare looks like. Human ships released thousands of small drones. Each one was barely bigger than a person, but they were fast and smart. They swarmed toward the defensive platforms like insects. The Valtesh tried to shoot them down, but for every drone they destroyed, 2 more got through. The drones didn't explode. They didn't have to. They attached themselves to the platforms and began broadcasting. Every few hours, Captain Gaon would transmit a message. Simple. Direct. Surrender terms. How many ships they had lost. How many would die tomorrow if they kept fighting. The psychological impact was devastating. Agent Kyung was deep behind enemy lines, disguised as a traitor. She moved through Valtesh space, watching and listening. What she saw confirmed everything human intelligence had predicted. The aliens were breaking. They don't know how to handle this, she reported back to Commander Somin. The Valtesh military is arguing with their civilian government. Some want to surrender, others want to fight to the death. But none of them know how to actually fight a war. Kyung watched Valtesh soldiers in a bar, drinking and talking. They looked defeated already. They had been trained to be warriors, but they had never been tested. Their entire military career had been ceremonies and parades and theoretical exercises. Now they were facing an enemy that had studied warfare for thousands of years. On the ground, Private Nari was part of the first human landing forces to hit a Valtesh colony world. The planet was toxic to humans. The atmosphere would kill an unprotected human in seconds. The temperature was far below freezing. The gravity was crushing. Nari wore a combat suit that kept her alive, but it was uncomfortable. Every movement took effort in the heavy gravity. She could hear her own breathing inside her helmet. Around her, her squad moved through the alien city, weapons ready. The Valtesh defenders had fortified their positions. They had heavy weapons and strong barriers, but they had never fought an enemy like humans before. Nari's squad didn't attack the fortifications directly. They went around, through buildings, under streets. Humans were small enough to fit in places the large Valtesh couldn't follow. "This is insane," one of the Valtesh defenders was heard saying over intercepted communications. "They're everywhere. How are they moving through our city like this? How are they even alive in this environment?" That was humanity's secret. They were adaptable. Give a human the right equipment and training, and they could survive anywhere. Fight anywhere. Win anywhere. The battle footage from Nari's helmet camera was broadcast across the galaxy. Other species watched in horror as human soldiers fought in conditions that should have killed them. The message was clear. There is nowhere you can go that we cannot follow. No environment harsh enough to stop us. Back on Earth, Dr. Yuri was analyzing the psychological impact of the war. "The aliens are experiencing trauma," she reported to Admiral Hanna. "Real combat trauma. They're having panic attacks, nightmares. Some are refusing to fight. Their species haven't evolved the mental resilience to handle actual warfare." Admiral Hanna listened carefully. "What about our people? How are they handling it?" Yuri pulled up different data. "Stress levels are elevated but manageable. Humans evolved to handle this kind of pressure. Our ancestors faced death constantly. It's literally coded into our DNA. We have better coping mechanisms." The war spread across multiple fronts. Captain Gaon's fleet maintained their siege of the Valtesh homeworld. Other human fleets engaged the Quelon and Mordran forces. Each battle followed the same pattern. The aliens expected traditional warfare. Big ships shooting at each other until one side's shields failed. They got something completely different. Human ships moved in ways that seemed impossible. They used the environment. They set traps. They attacked from unexpected angles. And when they boarded enemy ships, it was a nightmare. Human soldiers moving through corridors with a speed and efficiency that seemed superhuman to the aliens. The Quelon tried to use their telepathy as a weapon. They broadcast fear and panic toward human ships, but humans had prepared for this too. Every soldier wore neural dampeners, and more than that, human minds were chaotic in a way that confused the telepaths. Where alien minds were ordered and predictable, human consciousness was a storm of emotions and random thoughts that was impossible to control. Commander Somin's intelligence operation released more information about humanity. They showed the galaxy Earth's history of survival. Ice ages that should have killed humanity. Diseases that killed millions but never wiped them out. Disasters that would have ended other species. Humans just adapted and kept going. "They need to understand," Somin explained to her team. "Humans are survivors. You can beat us in a battle. You can destroy our ships. You can even kill millions of us, but you cannot make us give up. We will keep coming until you surrender or until you're extinct. Those are the only two options." The psychological warfare was working. Across the galaxy, alien governments were starting to panic. The war had been going on for 6 months now. The Valtesh had lost half their fleet. The Quelon had retreated from 3 systems. The Mordran were fighting hard, but taking massive casualties. And humanity? Humans were just getting started. They had barely committed a quarter of their actual military strength. The fleets the galaxy was fighting were just the beginning. Behind them, in secret shipyards, thousands more ships were being built. Private Nari and her squad cleared another section of the Valtesh city. The enemy defenders had fled. She found propaganda posters on the walls showing Valtesh warriors as noble and strong. Reality was different. The Valtesh were strong, yes. But strength wasn't enough against tactics, training, and the absolute refusal to give up. "Command, this is Delta Squad," Nari reported. "Sector 7 is secure. No enemy contact. They're running." That was the pattern everywhere. The aliens would fight for a while, realize they were losing, and then retreat. They didn't know how to persist through defeat. They had never needed to learn. Humanity had learned that lesson over and over throughout their history. The galaxy was beginning to understand a terrible truth. Humanity wasn't winning because they were stronger or smarter or better equipped. They were winning because they were willing to pay any price for victory. Because giving up wasn't in their nature. Because millions of years of evolution had created a species that simply did not know how to quit. 18 months had passed since the first battle. Fleet Admiral Sang stood in the command center, looking at the strategic display. The war had expanded beyond anyone's expectations. 12 alien species now fought against humanity. They had thousands of ships, trillions of soldiers, entire civilizations committed to stopping the human advance, and they were losing badly. "Status report," Sang ordered. "The Valtesh have lost 60% of their territory," an officer replied. "The Quellan are requesting negotiations. The Mordran are still fighting, but they have abandoned their outer colonies. The Thelians lost their primary shipyard last week." Sang nodded slowly. The numbers told the story. In every engagement, humanity won. Not because they had better weapons, though they did. Not because they had more ships, though they were building them faster than anyone else. They won because they understood something the galaxy had forgotten. War wasn't about technology or numbers. It was about will, and humanity's will was unbreakable. "The Galactic Council is meeting today," another officer reported. "They're debating whether to intervene. The neutral species are afraid we'll come for them next." "Good," Sang said quietly. "Fear keeps people honest." But that wasn't quite true, and Sang knew it. Humanity wasn't trying to conquer the galaxy. They were teaching it a lesson. A harsh lesson, but a necessary one. The galaxy needed to understand that humanity would defend itself, that threatening human worlds meant total war, that there were consequences for aggression. Diplomat Yuna sat across from a Quellan ambassador. The telepathic alien was trembling, his mental shields barely holding. Yuna could feel his fear without even trying. Good. Fear was useful in negotiations. "Your species can end this war today," Yuna said calmly. "Surrender your military fleet. Accept human oversight of your government for 10 years. Pay reparations for the ships you destroyed." Simple terms. The Quellan ambassador's thoughts leaked through his shields. Anger, humiliation, but also acceptance. His species was broken. "Those terms are harsh," he said out loud. Yuna smiled coldly. She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's history. "Let me tell you about harsh. This is the city of Hiroshima. In 1945, humans dropped a nuclear weapon on it. One bomb killed 80,000 people instantly. The city was erased." She changed the image. "This is the Holocaust. Humans killed 6 million of their own people. Systematically. Efficiently." Another image. "This is Unit 731. Humans experimenting on other humans. This is the Mongol conquests, the world wars, the genocides, the ethnic cleansings." The Quellan ambassador was shaking now, his telepathy picking up the emotional weight of those atrocities. "Your species went to war with us because you thought we were weak," Yuna continued. "You thought that because we seemed peaceful we couldn't fight. But humans created weapons that could destroy their own planet. Multiple times. We invented plagues that could wipe out billions. We built machines of war that turned warfare into industrial slaughter. And then we chose not to use them. Do you understand what that means?" The alien nodded slowly. "It means we know exactly how to destroy you. We've just been choosing not to. Consider my terms generous." Sergeant Wu led his company through the toxic swamps of a Mordran world. The environment was brutal. Acid rain fell constantly. The air was full of spores that would kill an unprotected human in minutes. The temperature swung from boiling to freezing within hours. The Mordran had evolved here. They thought it would give them an advantage. They were wrong. "Contact 300 meters, a scout reported. Mordran fortification, heavy weapons." Wu studied the tactical display. The Mordran position was strong. Good fields of fire. Solid cover. In a direct assault, his company would take heavy casualties, so he wouldn't do a direct assault, flank them. Team 1 goes left through the spore forest. Team 2 goes right through the acid pools. Team 3 sets up mortars here. We'll hit them from 3 sides at once. His soldiers moved out without question. They wore sealed combat suits that protected them from the environment. They had trained for this. Human military doctrine emphasized adaptability. If the environment was harsh, use it. If the enemy was strong, go around them. If a direct assault was costly, find another way. The battle lasted 20 minutes. The Mordran never saw it coming. They had prepared for an enemy attacking from the front. Instead, humans appeared from 3 different directions, using the terrain the Mordran thought would protect them. When it was over, the fortification was captured with minimal human casualties. This was the pattern everywhere. Humans fought smart. They didn't waste lives unnecessarily. Every battle was planned carefully, executed precisely. The galaxy had forgotten how to do this. They had forgotten that war was about thinking, not just shooting. Engineer Rin stood in a secure laboratory, presenting her latest designs to Admiral Hana. On the holographic display was a weapon that made even Hana pause. "This is a relativistic kinetic weapon," Rin explained. "We accelerate a small mass to 90% of light speed. When it hits, the energy release is equivalent to a nuclear weapon, but there's no radiation, no fallout. Just pure kinetic energy." Hana studied the design. "Can we build it?" "We already have," Rin replied. 3 prototypes are in orbit. We're just waiting for authorization to deploy them." "What's the target?" "Anything we want. A ship, a city, a continent. At those speeds, there's no defense. No shield can stop it. No armor is strong enough." Hana was quiet for a moment. "Have we told the galaxy about this?" "Not yet. I thought you might want to use it as a negotiation tool." Hana nodded. "Prepare a demonstration. A small asteroid in an uninhabited system. Make sure every species sees what it can do, but make it clear we're choosing not to use it against populated areas." That was humanity's greatest weapon. Restraint. The ability to destroy, but choosing not to. Every species in the galaxy now knew that humans could wipe out entire planets. They had the technology. They had the means. But they didn't. That scared the aliens more than any weapon because it meant humans were in control. They weren't fighting out of rage or fear. They were fighting with cold calculation. They knew exactly what they were doing and why. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. Neutral species debated what to do. Some wanted to help the species fighting humanity. Others wanted to stay out of it. All of them were afraid. "Humanity has shown remarkable restraint," one ambassador argued. "They could have destroyed the Valtesh homeworld. Instead, they're accepting surrenders. That's what makes them terrifying," another replied. "They're not acting like conquerors. They're acting like teachers, like they're punishing children." And that was exactly what humanity was doing. Teaching the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. You cannot threaten us without consequences. You cannot attack us and expect mercy. But you can surrender, and we will let you live. Fleet Admiral Sang received reports from all fronts. The war was winding down. Most of the alien species were negotiating surrender terms. A few were still fighting, but their defeat was inevitable. Humanity had won. Not through genocide or conquest, but through superior strategy, technology, and will. "Sir, the Valtesh High Command is requesting a formal surrender," an aide reported. "They're offering complete demilitarization." Sang considered this. The Valtesh had started this war. They deserved no mercy, but killing them all would make humanity into the monsters the galaxy feared they might be. Better to accept the surrender. "Show strength through mercy. Accept their terms," Sang ordered. "But we station observers on their worlds. We monitor their government for 20 years. And they pay reparations to cover our costs." Sergeant Wu and his company stood on the landing pad, preparing to leave the Mordran world. Behind them, Mordran civilians watched quietly. The humans had fought hard, but they hadn't targeted civilians. They had captured military bases but left cities alone. They had shown that they could be brutal in battle but controlled in victory. One young Mordran approached cautiously. Through a translator, she asked, "Why did you come to our world?" Wu looked at her. "Because your government attacked ours. We came to make sure they never do it again." "Will you leave now?" "Yes, your military surrendered." "The war is over. We're going home." The Mordran seemed confused. "You're not staying? You're not taking our world?" Wu shook his head. "We don't want your world. We just wanted you to stop attacking ours." As his transport lifted off, Wu thought about that conversation. The aliens didn't understand. They thought war was about conquest, about taking territory and resources. They didn't understand that for humanity, this war was about something else. It was about establishing dominance, about making sure no one ever threatened Earth again, about claiming their place at the top of the galactic hierarchy. Humanity had proven they were the apex predators. Now came the hard part, figuring out what to do with that power. President Jiwan stood before the Galactic Council. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from 47 species. They were all watching her, waiting to see what humanity would demand now that they had won the war. 27 months had passed since the Valtesh declared war on humanity. 27 months of fighting across dozens of star systems. The war was over. 12 species had surrendered. Thousands of ships had been destroyed. Millions had died, and humanity stood victorious. Members of the Galactic Council, Jiwan began, her voice calm and clear. For nearly 90 years, humanity has been part of this community. We came to you in peace. We traded with you. We learned from you. We pretended to be something we were not. The chamber was silent. Every species knew what she meant. Humanity had hidden their true nature. They had played weak while secretly building the most powerful military force in the galaxy. We did this because we learned long ago that the galaxy was not ready for the truth about humanity. We are a species born from violence. Our world was covered in predators. We survived by becoming better predators. We didn't just survive. We conquered our entire planet. Every major predator on Earth either went extinct or learned to serve us. Jiwan pulled up holographic images. Earth's history played out before the Council. Lions, tigers, bears, wolves, all of them deadly. All of them beaten by small, weak humans who were too smart and too determined to give up. Then we turned on each other. Jiwan continued. For thousands of years, humans fought humans. We built weapons that could destroy our world. We created diseases that could kill billions. We studied every possible way to kill efficiently. And then when we reached the stars, we chose peace. We chose to hide what we were, because we hoped the galaxy could handle the truth. She paused, letting the words sink in. The Valtesh proved us wrong. They saw our choice of peace as weakness. They attacked us. They forced us to reveal ourselves. And now the galaxy knows the truth. Humanity is the most dangerous species in known space, not because we're the strongest, not because we're the smartest, but because we never stop. We never give up. We adapt to anything, survive anything, and we win. Counselor Minho, humanity's representative, stood up. The question now is what happens next. Humanity has a proposal. We call it the Terran Accord. He projected the details for everyone to see. The terms were clear. Humanity would take responsibility for galactic security. Any species that wanted protection would get it. Any species that started a war would face humanity's full military force. All species would contribute to a defensive fleet, trained and led by human officers. You're asking us to accept human dominance, a Valtesh representative said quietly. The proud species looked broken. Their empire was shattered. Their military destroyed. Yes, Jiwan replied simply, because humanity has proven we can provide what the galaxy needs. Security, order, protection from external threats. For 3,000 years you had peace because no one was strong enough to challenge the Valtesh. Now you'll have peace because no one is strong enough to challenge humanity. And if we refuse? Asked a Quellan ambassador. Jiwan's expression didn't change. Then you're on your own. Humanity will protect our own worlds and our allies. Everyone else can fend for themselves. But understand this. The next time someone threatens Earth, we won't be as patient. We won't give warnings. We'll just act, and we'll assume that anyone not with us is against us. The threat was clear. Join the Terran Accord or be seen as a potential enemy. The galaxy had a choice, but it wasn't really a choice at all. Admiral Hana met with the first group of alien officers joining the human military. They stood at attention, trying to look confident. They all failed. These were soldiers from defeated species here to learn from the victors. You're here because your governments made a smart choice, Hana told them. They recognized that humanity knows how to fight. Now you're going to learn our methods. You're going to understand why you lost. She pulled up tactical displays from recent battles. This is the engagement at Theta System. The Mordran had superior numbers, better positions, stronger shields. They should have won. Why didn't they? A young Mordran officer hesitantly raised one of his arms. Because you didn't fight the way we expected? Exactly, Hana confirmed. You expected a traditional battle. We gave you asymmetric warfare. You prepared for one kind of enemy. We became a different kind. That's lesson 1. Adaptability beats strength every single time. She moved to the next display. This is the siege of Valtesh Prime. Captain Gaon's fleet cut off an entire planet. But we didn't starve them. We didn't bombard their cities. We just waited. And every day we broadcast surrender terms. We let them know exactly how bad their situation was. We made them think about it, understand it, accept it. That's lesson 2. Psychological warfare wins battles before the first shot is fired. The alien officers took notes, their faces showing a mixture of shame and fascination. They were learning that warfare wasn't about honor or strength. It was about winning, and humanity had perfected the art of winning. Captain June walked through the halls of what used to be a Valtesh military command center. Now it was a human base. Valtesh and human technicians worked together, rebuilding what the war had damaged. It was strange seeing former enemies working side by side. A Valtesh engineer approached him. "Captain June, I wanted to thank you." June was surprised. "Thank me? For what?" "For not destroying everything. My family lives in the city below. When your fleet arrived, we thought we would all die, but you captured the base without bombing the city. You could have killed millions. You chose not to." June nodded slowly. "We're not here to commit genocide. We're here to make sure you never attack us again. There's a difference." "I understand that now," the Valtesh replied. "My species was arrogant. We thought we were the strongest. We thought that made us superior. You taught us that strength without wisdom is nothing." This was happening across the galaxy, former enemies learning to respect humanity, not just fear them, but actually respect them. Humanity had won the war, but they were winning the peace by showing restraint, by helping rebuild, by acting like leaders, not conquerors. On Earth, in the deep command centers, alerts started coming in. Long-range sensors were detecting something at the edge of explored space. Something big. Something moving toward the galaxy. Commander Soman brought the reports to President Jiwan. "We're picking up energy signatures that don't match any known species. Whatever it is, it's massive. Thousands of ships, maybe more. That's what it looks like. They're still months away, but they're definitely heading this way." Jiwan smiled grimly. "Perfect timing. The galaxy just learned that humanity can protect them. Now we get to prove it." She called an emergency council session. Representatives from all 47 species gathered quickly. The neutral species that had stayed out of the war. The defeated species that had surrendered. Everyone came. "Members of the council," Jiwan announced. "We have detected a massive fleet approaching our galaxy from dark space. We don't know who they are or what they want, but based on their trajectory and formation, we must assume hostile intent." The chamber erupted in panic. Species that had never faced external threats didn't know how to handle this. They looked to each other for answers, finding only fear. "Quiet." Jiwan's voice cut through the noise. "This is exactly why humanity proposed the Terran Accord. This is exactly why we need a unified defense. Alone, each of your species would be helpless. Together, under human leadership, we can face this threat." Counselor Minho stood up. "Humanity is already mobilizing our fleets. We're prepared to defend the entire galaxy, but we need your cooperation. We need bases on your worlds. We need access to your resources. We need every species to contribute to the defense." One by one, species agreed. Even the proud Valtesh, still recovering from their defeat, pledged their remaining ships to the defense. The Quelon offered their telepathic abilities for coordination. The Mordran volunteered their soldiers for ground defense. Every species contributed something. Fleet Admiral Sang watched as the greatest military force in galactic history assembled. Human ships formed the core, but now they were joined by vessels from dozens of other species. All of them painted with the new symbol of the Terran Accord, all of them following human tactical doctrine. "This is what we built," Sang told his staff. "Not an empire, not a conquest, a coalition. We proved we were the strongest, and now they follow us because they know we can protect them." Private Nari trained a group of Mordran soldiers in human combat tactics. She was teaching them how to move through hostile terrain, how to use cover, how to think like predators instead of prey. "Your species is strong," she told them, "but strength alone isn't enough. You need to be smart. You need to adapt. You need to survive when everything is against you. That's what humans do. That's what you need to learn." The Mordran soldiers practiced, struggling at first, but gradually improving. They were learning from the best. Learning from a species that had mastered survival through countless millennia of struggle. The unknown fleet continued its approach. Humanity shared all sensor data with their new allies. They held strategy sessions where human officers taught galactic forces their methods. They prepared defensive positions across dozens of star systems.